Kudos Channel TV, creating a platform of expression for every woman.
The second rule is what I call the no-touch rule. The first is the no-see rule. The second is the no-touch rule. No-touch rule just says that no one is allowed to touch their private part, or make them, let's always remember that part, make them touch someone else's private part. Now the third safety rule that I teach is the no secret, or before that, the alone rule. Alone rule, let's teach our children not to stay alone with people other than us for a long period of time. When people, because we've seen cases of an uncle or an auntie asked me to buy something, and then in process of taking it to the room, then the child gets abused, or the child gets raped. So let's teach our children, yes, to be respectful, but to avoid staying alone with people other than their parents as much as they can. Now again, the last one is the no secret rule. No secret rule. Let's teach our children not to keep secret. I say it every time that I go. Your sign to tell is when you hear don't tell. So when anyone wants to teach you anything, wants to show you anything, wants to tell you anything, and says, promise me you will not tell, that is your sign to tell. It's important that we teach our children that. Again, it's important that we teach our children to say no. I said it earlier, there is no place where saying no is synonymous with disrespect. I think it's the how of the no that might be termed as disrespectful, particularly with children. Let us teach our children it is okay for them to be able to say no. If somebody wants to give a hug and your child does not want a hug, it's not compulsory. It's not like that's the only form of greeting that is available. A good morning sir, a good morning ma does not have to be with a hug. So if your child is not comfortable with that, let's encourage our children to be able to talk. Let's help them build the confidence that they need to actually be able to say no. So it's okay for your child to be able to say no. So I say run safety check. What are safety checks? All of the things that I've just mentioned. Before you drive your car, you will check the oil. If you're traveling, you check your tires and all of that. So if your child is going to journey, you're not going to be around, or it's going to be in the care of some other people, it's important that we check and run our safety check. Be sure that your child remembers the safety rule. I could have forgotten this. Please let us create what I call safe code. Now, what is a safe code? A lot of times our children are not able to express themselves because the people that abuse them or that are trying to cross their boundaries are people known to you also, family members. So how will your child come and tell you that your sister is abusing him? Now, you need to begin to ask questions like, why are you buying gifts for my child? It's important for, yes, we be polite, sort of, but you need to ask those questions so that if that person has intentions, he would know that, okay, this is a mother, this is a mom cop. I call myself a mom cop anyway, so oh, this is a mom cop. No, this is a no zone. It's an FBI or a CIA zone, and I'm not going there. Again, you need to find that if there's somebody that would rather be with children, it's always very convenient for him to put his activities aside to stay with your child. You might want to begin to ask questions like, why are you always around my child? Now, if there's somebody your child is scared of, and if there's somebody your child would rather be with than you, those are signs again that you need to check to be sure that your child has not been sexually abused. So I would say that be friends with your child. That's the first thing. A lot of times parents are not available. I say it everywhere that I go. Parenting is synonymous with availability. If you're not available, you have no business being a parent. And I'm sorry, I don't care what kind of job that you do. Now, priority should be on your child, even if you cannot be physically present. You know, IT has made it very, very convenient for us that wherever you are, you can make sure that you Skype with your child. Now, if you have to be away, let them know. Be friends with your children. If you're not friends with them, when they run into trouble, they won't come and somebody that doesn't share joy with you, how will he share pain, or how will she share pain with you? So it's important for us to be friends. I keep saying it that have your moments with your child. At least no phones. It might be 15 minutes every day that you can spare, but please let there be an alone time, just you and your child. And God bless you if you have more than 3. You know, it doesn't have to be every day. You could spread it into like 3 times in a week, 1 for each child, depending on what works for you. But the most important thing is that you are friends with your child, that you spend alone time with your child. That's the first thing. The second thing is educate yourself. A lot of us are not informed. What you don't have, you cannot give. For instance, we're talking about body safety, age-appropriate education. You need to find out, how can I talk to my child about sex, about abuse without exposing too much, without putting fear, also without putting fear in our hearts. You need to research, you need to read, you need to ask questions. Find out, educate yourself on what you need to know to protect your child. Parenting tips are everywhere that you can lay your hands on. And then again, I say teach body safety education is the third most important. You need to educate your child. Teach them what their body parts are. Teach them nobody is allowed to touch their private part because they're important people. I tell my children wherever I go, just as the president cannot walk into a room and you just go and have access to him and then begin to touch his shoulder, not even his private part, his shoulder, let alone his private part. Why? Because he's a very important person. So let's teach our children that they are very important, and because they are important, people should not have access, do not have that right. Do not have that right to them. So there are about 4 of the rules that I call body safety rules. The first, let's teach our children no one is allowed to look at their private part. We always leave this other part. So I say no one is allowed to look at their private part or make them look at someone else's private part. A lot of times we leave that part out. The second rule is what I call the no touch rule. The first is the no see rule. The second is the no touch rule. No touch rule just says that no one is allowed to touch their private part or make them, let's always remember that part, make them touch someone else's private part. Now the third safety rule that I teach is the no secret, or before that, the alone rule. Alone rule, let's teach our children not to stay alone with people other than us for a long period of time. When people, because we've seen cases of an uncle or an auntie asked me to buy something, and then in the process of taking it to the room, then the child gets abused or the child gets raped. So let's teach our children, yes, to be respectful, but to avoid staying alone with people other than their parents as much as they can. Now again, the last one is the no secret rule. No secret rule. Let's teach our children not to keep secret. I say it every time that I go. Your sign to tell is when you hear don't tell. So when anyone wants to teach you anything, wants to show you anything, wants to tell you anything, and says, promise me you will not tell, that is your sign to tell. It's important that we teach our children that. Again, it's important that we teach our children to say no. I said it earlier, there is no place where saying no is synonymous with disrespect. I think it's the how of the no that might be termed as disrespectful, particularly with children. Let us teach our children. It is okay for them to be able to say no. If somebody wants to give a hug and your child does not want a hug, it's not compulsory. It's not like that's the only form of greeting that is available. A good morning sir, a good morning ma does not have to be with a hug. So if your child is not comfortable with that, let's encourage our children to be able to talk. Let's help them build the confidence that they need to actually be able to say no. So it's okay for your child to be able to say no. So I say run safety check. What are safety checks? All of the things that I've just mentioned. Before you drive your car, you will check the oil. If you're traveling, you check your tires and all of that. So if your child is going on a journey, you're not going to be around, or it's going to be in the care of some other people, it's important that we check run our safety check, be sure that your child, remembers the safety rule. How could I have forgotten this? Please let us create what I call safe code. Now, what is a safe code? A lot of times our children are not able to express themselves because the people that abuse them or that are trying to cross their boundaries are people known to you also, family members. So how will your child come and tell you that your sister is abusing him? Now, just think about it. Or that her dad is abusing her. How will she come and tell you? But if you create a safe code, a word, very short word, very fun, easy to remember. Once you hear that word of course will be known to just you, your child, and of course your spouse. Now once your child tells you that word, it's like the airline for crashes, you have Mayday. So once you hear Mayday, perhaps that's what you choose to. You just know that, okay, my child is uncomfortable, somebody is trying to cross boundaries, or my child is in great danger. You know that means that you need to get to your child. So teach this, create a safe code. And so your safety check ensures that your child remembers the body safety rules, remembers your safe code, remembers, more importantly, that you love your child. A lot of times we're too busy to tell our children that we love them. I said it once that sometimes we make our children attractive to pedophiles. How do we do that? Now pedophiles always profile their children, their victims. They look for children that crave attention, children that have low self-esteem, children suffer from one form of neglect, and children that have one form of disability or the other. Now the cap of it is, if you do not show love to your child, if your child does not interpret and understand that you love them or that you have their back, you make them attractive to a pedophile because they will look for love, they will seek attention somewhere else. Please let us create time for our children, give them attention and make them less attractive to the pedophile. Again, let's help our children to speak. Most of the time, yes, it's wrong for a child to speak back, but let's encourage. When your child does something wrong, let your child be able to explain. Now, explaining the reason why he has done it does not excuse it. I think a lot of time we get that wrong. It doesn't excuse what he has done, but let her explain why she has done what she has done. And then after the explanation, for instance, if you go to court now, even the criminal has a right to hearing. Our children also have a right to hearing. So when there's an offense, let them explain, okay, this is why I did what I did. Now in that explanation, you might realize that, okay, maybe really your child might not have been at fault. Maybe it's just misunderstanding. And then you would be able to decide on the appropriate disciplinary measure that you should take. Now, when we shut our children down, when we shout them down, when we don't allow them to speak to us, then we are making them attractive for the pedophile that would sexually, abuse them. So encourage your children to be able to speak. Encourage them. It builds their self-confidence. It builds their self-esteem. Then again, I said it earlier, teach your child it's okay to say no. If someone is crossing your boundaries, it's okay for you to say no. Again, I'll say run on the spot check. When you have people other than you living in your house, please find the time, wake up in the middle of the night, tiptoe if you need to, go and check what's happening. If you have teenagers, find a reason to send them out, check their phones, check what's happening. Our time, I say it, if you're a parent, you're not on Facebook, you're not on Instagram, you have a teenager, you are joking. I'm sorry, but you are joking. Because the truth about it, you need to know. Now, I'm sorry, this is a spoiler alert for my youth, for my teenagers. Work together. But right now, parents, you need to learn how to check cookies, how to check sites that have been deleted. Now, sometimes our children really are very smart, but there are ways you can check the sites that have been visited on a particular phone or a device, even after those sites have been deleted. Now, I say it, we are cops. We need to learn how to do our investigation. That's the only way that we might be able to protect our children.
Entrepreneuse Channel TV, Africa's first gender-based television service. Yes, on Entrepreneuse Channel TV, our primary responsibility is promoting women entrepreneurs in West African countries. We also support women's well-being, share women's knowledge on a variety of subjects and topics, passions and opinions. Entrepreneuse Channel TV is on Intelsat 20. Our satellite coverage is within Africa, Europe, Middle East, Asia, North and South America. Opportunities abound for women-owned micro to small businesses, corporate bodies and organizations institutions, and also government parastatals. For inquiries and advert placements, contact 0705 5053 843. Entrepreneuse Channel TV, rewriting Africa's story through enterprise on Muslims.
From becoming sexually abused. The long of it all is that let's love our children. Let's create time for our children. Let's also be involved. Well, of course, that varying degrees, but let's be involved in the lives of other children. Don't assume that that child is not my child, and so I shouldn't be bothered. You don't know who your child is going to meet tomorrow. So that's why it's important. I'm not saying go out of your way. I'm not saying that, I'm not saying that you evade their privacy or cross their lines and all of that. But it's important. And mentioning privacy, please let us teach our children early enough privacy. Let us, if you have children of opposite sex, please, privacy is very, very important. Their bodies are theirs. I have a poem that I wrote. It's about 5 stanzas, but there's a particular stanza that appeals to my heart, and I'll just share it with you. Now, I'm sure that it will also help in having that conversation with your child that we all as parents try to run away from. And it is my body is mine, my privates are mine. To keep and to save, I learn to be brave. It's okay to say no to every trespassful. My body is mine. Teach your child, have conversations with your child, be friends with your child, be observant. Please let us be observant. Really, that's really the cup of it. Let us be observant, because sometimes if you're not looking out for the signs, you will not be able to tell. If you are not really looking out for the signs, you will not be able to tell. For the boy child, a lot of times we assume that it's the girl child that is at risk of becoming sexually abused. Just yesterday again, I was speaking with somebody, and he shared his experience, the experience of his abuse. And I keep saying it that we have as many boys have been abused as we have of girls. Please let us give our boys attention. I keep saying it that a child hurts himself, a boy hurts himself, or 2 children hurt themselves, a boy and a girl. Now the girl is crying, the boy is also crying. Now what we do most of the time, we run to the girl and then we tell the boy to keep quiet. Why? He's a child. Please let us allow our boys to cry. If they've hurt themselves, it's okay for them to cry. Now, I don't think there is anywhere where it's wrong to actually have a moment of weakness. If it were wrong to accept your weakness, or to accept your weakness, if we can say that, then nobody will actually have any weakness in the first place. And so if your child is hurt, please let's encourage him to express himself, because those are the problems that we have with our boys. We expect them to be men. Now growth takes a process, and so it grows from being a baby to being an infant, it goes to the toddler, and then it continues like that. Don't assume that because of his gender, then he has to take all the burden of the whole world upon his head. Now, I keep saying it. A boy that has to fight for your attention by becoming defiant, by throwing tantrums, how do you expect that boy to grow to become a man that will be considerate? How do you expect that boy to grow up to be a man that will be attentive to his wife, that will learn to listen? No, it doesn't work like that. Our children are like seeds, we nurture them, we give them nutrients, we give them water. Sometimes we have to do grafting when there is need for it. So the man that you want your daughter to end up with should be, your son is supposed to be a prototype of that man that you want your daughter to end up with. So if you want your daughter to end up with a man that is loving, train your boy to be like that. Now, a boy that does not receive love, that doesn't express love, cannot grow to become a man that will give love. It doesn't work like that. Let us teach our children that they receive affection not because of their gender. No, I don't think it is right. I think it's an injustice on children to show affection, to show love based on gender. I think when we talk of equality, that's really what equality is about. It's not about the gender. It's actually about children being cared for the same way. The right that the boy child has to education, the best of it is what the girl child has to education. The right the girl child has to love, to affection, is what the boy child has to the same love and affection, because they are children. Now the problem that we have in the society, is a mirror of what has gone wrong in the childhood. If the foundation of our children are faulty, then of course what hope do we have? What future do we actually look into? So let us train our children to love and to receive love. Let us train our boys to ask for things. Let us train them not to just take, in fact, male and female, but yes, not with our boys. Let's teach them to ask. Let's teach them to take. It's amazing when you are with children. There was a day my son and he was with his cousins, and they were having role plays, and my niece said she wanted to be a doctor. She was going to act the doctor role, and my son immediately said to her that no, girls are not doctors, girls are nurses. Immediately, initially I said, what did you say? And he said to the girl that she's a girl, she's supposed to be a nurse, and not a doctor. She said she wants to be a doctor. And I said to him right there, she can be a doctor. You have girls, ladies, women that are doctors. So it's not about the gender. She can be, in fact, there are men that are nurses. So, but what I'm saying is, I have not said that to my son. But just because, of course, we've been going to the hospital and he sees that most of the time the doctors are men and the nurses are, are female or women, he just assumed that that's just a pattern, which is okay. But it's important that then that's why our parents really, that we make the necessary corrections where we should. If I'd left that, my son would grow with that mentality that, okay, just because of your gender, there are some things that you should do and there are some things that you shouldn't do. And that's why we really need to be, as parents, we need to be very holistic in our training, in our parenting. We need to be very, don't just overlook those things. There's nothing like you will outgrow it. No, there's nothing like, no. If you don't do something about it, it's not going to outgrow it. It's going to grow up in that, and that's going to be his life. He's going to expect that the girl child is expected to serve the girl child. So I keep saying it to parents, if you have children, male and female, please give chores that are age appropriate, not gender appropriate. I don't think there are chores that are gender appropriate. No, I don't think there is anywhere that when chores are being created, I don't know if chores are created anyway, but I don't think there's anywhere chores are being created that in the conceptualization of the chore, there's the gender attached to it. No, who says boys cannot sweep? Who says boys cannot wash dishes? Who says it has to be the girl that is in the kitchen? No, I don't think it's supposed to be like that. Yes, and that the girl child is probably, just because of her makeup, is likely to tend towards that than the male child. No, yes, it's just natural. My niece that I talked about would want to, back a teddy bear, would want to, it's just because of the makeup of the girl child. But it's not to say that, when they are together and you say, Ayo, go and sweep. Ayo is younger. And then you ask Ayo, the younger girl, to go and sweep. And then the boy is supposed to pick up the shoes or arrange the shoes. And I ask, why is Ayo the one to sweep? No, I think there should be a roster. So Ayo has a sweeping time. Shola also has a sweeping time. So I think it's important that we balance that as we, and it's important that we teach our children respect. Respect is reciprocal. The boy child, the girl child, it's important that we balance what we put into our children, that we are deliberate. A friend of mine has a group on it's in WhatsApp now. She calls it intentional parenting. And I've so fallen in love with that. We have to be very deliberate. We have to be intentional in our parenting if we're going to protect our children from becoming sexually abused. Because what they become, what the society will become, is actually child to our children. If not, we're going to have in Nigeria, we're going to have we're going to have an Africa of ruined children, and it will be so devastating. I keep saying it, we say children are the leaders of tomorrow. Now, if today they are damaged, then really there will be no tomorrow. And that's why today we have to protect our children. We have to preserve their innocence as best as we can. We have to go back to instilling the right values into them if we're going to be able to protect them from becoming sexually abused, or to growing up to be individuals that we will be proud of. So the boy, the man that you want your girl to end up with should be the boy that you are actually raising. And you know, today I'm calling out and saying that if you have a boy child, do not assume that he's not at risk. Do not assume that he can be sexually abused. In fact, you know that of course there is sodomy, and sodomy is on the rise right now. You know, and so the boy can be abused by the female. He can also be abused by the male. So please let us give attention to our children, not because of their gender. And that's what pushed me to write a children's storybook. So I have this children's storybook called The New Game. Now I've learned that with children it's easy to teach them anything when you put it in a story. And it's a storybook that talks about a child that has been sexually abused, and we look at again how parents can predispose their children to becoming sexually abused, and again how they can then protect their children from from becoming sexually abused. The character in this book is a boy, but because I want us to drive that point on that our boys can also be sexually abused, it is very, very important that we realize that our children, both male and female, can actually become can become prey. So whatever you're doing for the girl child to protect, is also important that you do that for the boy child, so that we have a society that is to the barest minimum has abused and reduced. Again, at this point, I want to call attention to the fact that incest is also on the rise. Now, abuse can go on between peers. And that's why it's important for you as a parent to be concerned about the child of the other woman. Because of your cousin, your sister and all that. As long as they have contact with your child. Now, abuse can also happen amongst peers. And then amongst siblings, incest. It's also on the rise. The child is abused, he comes home, and he abuses his brother or he abuses his sister, and it's right under your nose. You don't know about it if you're not looking out for the signs. That's why it's important. Let us teach our children to be able to talk to us. I always say it's communication. I'm a graduate of communication and language arts from the University of Ibadan, and so one of the things that stayed in my head from the first year is that communication is not complete until you have feedback. Now, parenting is such like that. There is no parenting school, really as such. So we make mistakes. We just pray that the mistakes that we make in parenting do not have irreparable damages or effects on our children. But we make mistakes. We correct our mistakes as best as we can, and then we move on. Now, one of the ways that I think that we can be effective parents, or be the parents that our children need in today's world, is to be parents that listen, that receive feedback. And so I would say it, and I'll bring this to your table. Please encourage your children, especially when you have your child is 6, maybe from 5, can actually articulate him or herself. Encourage them to give you feedback. So we have what we call HOSEC parents call sheet. We have some parameters. Give it to your child and say, okay, I just want you to, to just call me. In comparison, just call me. How have I been in terms of my expression of love, in terms of the attention that I give you, in the way that I handle matters. Let your child speak back to you. Because the truth about it is, we appraise ourselves and we assume that we are the best parents. I've seen parents that did all that they could, and their children turned out as their worst nightmare. And I've seen parents that did not do jack, and they have fight. In fact, you would ask, sometimes you see those children and you ask how it could not have been these people that actually parented these children. So that's why it's important to have once in a while do an appraisal. Let your child do an appraisal of yourself, because you cannot boost productivity. So you can't boost productivity if you do not run appraisals. So ask your children, do you think that would you be able to score me as the best dad in the world? Or is there anything that I'm not doing right that you want? In fact, if you ask your child that question, less than 10, if it's a preteen that you ask that question, yes, you might get a lot of yes, because, that point to teenage years, they want to have their way, and of course, there is constant battle. You might not get good reviews. So be ready. You might not get good reviews. But the truth about it is, it will do two things. One, it will tell your child that you are actually concerned, about them, their feelings. It's important to you. Whatever they think, that you love them. So that's one thing that we do. Even with your child that is 6 or 5, you will know that, okay, so I can speak to my dad and my dad can actually listen to me. So it's important, ask your children, if they cannot, if they are not at the age where they can articulate themselves well and right, ask them as questions. Do you like, is there anything you want, that I'm not doing right as a dad or as a mom? Is there something you want? Explain to your children, have conversation with them. There's a need for us to have feedback as parents. You cannot score yourself and say, oh, I'm a fantastic dad. No, it's not your place. Your wife can't even say you're a fantastic dad. Really, that's the truth about it. Well, yes, she can, because she sees, what you do. But really, I think the recipient of the parenting, to a large extent, should have a say, should be the one to actually judge the quality of the parenting. And again, because they also see other parents. Now, if there are problems, if there are questions in their hearts, it will show, and you will know what to deal with. If there are value issues, it will come out. It will come out in that. And I want to use this at this point to talk about, because when I said the mother can actually talk, I can say if the father is a good one or not. Now, another thing that predisposes our children to becoming sexually abused is the unavailability of a parent. That could come from separation, that could come from divorce. Now, it's not my place to go into that, and I do not have the intention to go into that. But what I just want to say is, please do not rob your children of their, parenting, fatherhood, motherhood. Do not rob your children of their father. Now the question to ask is he a good dad? He might have been the worst husband. Yes, that's a different thing. But is he a good father? If he's a good father, please allow your children to have the father figure in their life. You don't have to be under the same roof, but please let the father be part of the growing up of the child. Now, the problem or the question to also ask is she a good mother to her child? You might have fallen out of love for whatever reason. She might be a terrible wife. She might be a terrible, whatever it is that you had desired, that you discover is not what what you're dealing with. It's a different thing. But please let our decisions, let our falling in love and falling out of love, let it not have an adverse effect on our children. The question to ask yourself is he a good father? If he's a good father, please allow him to continue to father his children. He doesn't have to father his children with the children under his roof. Really. Is she a good mother? If she's a good mother, please allow her to continue to be that good mother. Work out whatever it is that you have to work. And I'd like to plead with us, please. Let us not use the battle for custodian of our children. Let it not be about our ego. Let it not be our ace ticket. Let it not be okay, this is my winning ticket. I walked out of the divorce, or I walked out of the separation the winner. Usually in war you say there are no winners. All of us will count our losses at the end of the day. And so let our children not be collateral damage at the point of separation. Please, it is very important, because we do rescue. The last set of rescue that we did, all of the children that were on the streets have been products from separation, divorce, broken homes. And that also affects, or that also adds to the increase or the prevalence of abuse and delinquency of our children. Please, when there has to be a separation, please let us put the interest of our children, let us put it. I am not saying that, okay, because that's deception. Sometimes out of our fear we say or we claim that we are in an abusive relationship because of our children. No, I am not saying that. I'm saying whatever your decision is going to be, or whatever your decision is, please just make sure that it does not have adverse effect on our children. There is no way that separation or divorce will not affect your child. No, especially if you have a teenager, it will affect. But there can be palliatives that can be put in place to make sure to reduce the effect. And one of the things that I would say is, please make sure that a family member that is known to them is available as support. Now, even if for whatever reason the father is not going to be available in the life of the child, for instance, for whatever unexplainable reason, we've had fathers that have violated their daughters, And so if separation happens in that kind of relationship and the child is taken out of course you want a severe relationship between the father and that child at that point, please look for a father figure. It is important. That's why it has to be the father and the mother. When you see a product, a child raised by a woman alone, you just are able to tell. And it's the same thing when you see a child raised by a man alone. You look at the signs and you can tell. And our children are expected to have the best of both worlds. So please, it doesn't have to be the bad parent. We've seen children, of course, that lost their parents, at birth, and they've grown up to be adults that the world will forever remember. So it doesn't have to be the bad parent that will do the parenting. But whatever the situation is, if for whatever reason the father has to be out of the picture, please look for a father figure for your child. Let there be a father figure. Let your child still grow up to have a father figure. Now, if for whatever reason the mother has to be out of the picture, the same way, let there be a mother figure, a woman that can, make the sacrifices that a mother would. Somebody that, let's just, the whole idea of parenting, of motherhood or fatherhood as such, let our children still be able to get the best of it, irrespective of whatever differences that we have to work. Because we have seen from time to time that it also predisposes our children to becoming sexually abused. Now, when we have to keep our children with relatives as best as we can, if we can prevent it, yes, but the reality of today sometimes might not make it very easy for us to be able to prevent that. But if our children have to stay with relatives, please let's not abandon them. Let us continue to, let's be available for them. Let us talk to our children. A lot of times we assume that our children do not have understanding. They are too young, they are too little. Let us always give time to the things that we do with them. For instance, if your child is going to have to go and live with a grandma, or explain to your child, even if your child cannot speak all the grammar, cannot articulate him or herself well enough, explain to your child. Your children can listen. The beautiful thing from my experience, there were songs, that's when my boy particularly, there were songs that I used to sing to him as a baby. And then when my son started speaking, he started singing one of those songs. And I was in shock, because of course then work had resumed work and I'd become a bit busy, and for whatever reason I'd stopped singing those songs. And so I initially could not just remember. In fact, when he sang the song, I couldn't just remember. I asked him, who taught you the song? And then I remembered, I think it was even my husband that, brought it back to my memory that, is that not one of the songs that you used to sing to him? And so it just dawned on me that, oh, okay. And then he said, he has ears now, and then he processes. His brain has short-term memory, has long-term memory, and he has mid-memory. So our children are able to listen. They might not be able to process it at that time, but they store it. And at the right time, they recall what it is that they have stored. So if for whatever reason your child is not going to be with you, don't just assume that he is a child or she's a child. Have that conversation with them and say, okay, I have to do this, and you have to go and stay with this person, but please know that it's not because I don't love you, mommy loves you, daddy loves you, and all of that. Converse with your child. Let them know, because a lot of times our children assume that we don't love them. And then because we're too busy for them, we always look for opportunities for them to be away from us, especially during holidays. I know children can be a handful, especially if you have wonderful kids like mine. They can be a handful, and with your work, with a lot of things going on, you just want to have a breather. Yes, we all need to have it, because really what you don't have, you cannot give. Love yourself, take care of yourself, for you to be able to take care of your children. But each time they have to be away from you, let them understand the reason why they need to be away. Yes, for integration with other members of the family, for them to, for them to know other members of the family, for them to meet other people. Yes, for you to have time to do a particular thing that you're doing, or just whatever the reason, or maybe because you're not able to take care of them at this point, whatever the reason, please let's converse with our children. The whole idea, the process of conversing with them, beats their esteem, tells them that you love them, so they know that whatever reason, if a stranger comes in to say, okay, because you are living with your uncle or your auntie, is because your mom does not have time for you, and I will always be there for you. Now, your child will relate it back, but no, that's not the reason why I'm there. My mom just has to do this. But if you didn't give any reason to your child, it's just like in the court. The first person to go to the court really usually has the first say. And the first say, until you're able to prove that say is actually false, is still the first say. And that's the way it is again with pedophiles. When they talk, what they try to do is to twist, and then they prey on their weaknesses, on the situation. So they see a child that is craving love, or a child that parents are not available for, and they start with, whatever you want to share, I'm always here for you, I'm always going to be available for you, and so that's why you need to talk to your children. Please, again, let's encourage our children. I keep saying it, there is just no excuse for you not to be available. Let us encourage our children to write. If you're that busy for whatever it is, teach your children to write. They can write you can read it, just be a part of their life, be in their space. Yes, privacy, yes, but you can, to a large extent, invade their privacy and be in their space, just be in their life. Because if you're going to protect your child, it's just like FBI when they have watch list. We need to have our watch list, and we need to tick our watch list off as they grow through stages and they come out of phases of life. We need to be able to do our checks that, okay, I've gone through this, I've gone through that. More importantly, please let's remember to always pray for our children, because I've realized that I've seen parents that have done all that they could. Sometimes life just still happens, so just remember to continue to pray for it and equip your children with skills. Now, I'm going to emphasize this, please. Now, one of the easiest ways to help our children develop problem-solving skills is to teach them a vocation. Identify his interest. Help your child rechannel, his energy. Help your child create, how do I say, passion for something. Expose your child to, because life can happen at any time. I've seen parents, very upward mobile, that one of the parents actually died, and the child had to go and live with a relative, and of course, it just started spiraling down, and before we knew it, the child became sexually abused at the end of the day. Now, when we equip our children with skills, we also protect them, prepare them for life, because life can happen at any time. So find a skill that you can encourage your child. It has to be a skill that your child enjoys, so it has to be something that any child enjoys. So expose them to as many skills as you can, and encourage them to learn, and create. They would already have had the passion anyway. Just help them to do a mastery of it. You will discover that it would help their problem-solving skills, which they would also transfer to their academics. It makes them more rounded as an individual. It also builds their self-esteem and makes them less attractive to a predator. Now, I say it back and forth. Please let us learn to speak out. And probably this is where I'll draw the curtain. Now, if your child has been sexually abused, please do not keep quiet. That child needs to be seen. That child needs help. Now, a lot of times we just assume that once we take our children to the hospital and they flush and they do all that they need to do, and that's about it. No, there is need for psychosocial support. And that's what's going to determine if your child is going to be able to cope with life. That's what's going to determine if your child is going to, if your child is going to be able to live a normal, seemingly normal life after the experience that your child might have had. It's very, very important that we learn to speak up. It's very, very important that we learn to stand and fight for our children. And at this point, I'm calling on to mothers, I'm calling on to society. Let us come together and fight the menace of child sexual abuse. It is devastating, it is horrific, it is not an experience that any child should have to go through. Please let us learn to speak up. If your child has been sexually abused, please let your child, make sure your child gets psychosocial support. Let your child get help, because sometimes in most of the cases, if not in fact, well, let me say in most of the cases, abuse leaves irreparable damage on our children. Now, so they have to learn to cope with the effects. so that they can still live normal life. It's not going to, you don't erase it, you don't take it away. It's just like when you have diabetes or, you have high blood pressure. You just manage it and make sure that, you're in check. So let's ensure that we offer our children the support and the help that they need part-time. So if you know a child that has been abused, like I said, please don't keep quiet. Please encourage them to see a child psychologist. You can reach out. You can reach out to us, and then we would help you take it up from there. It's very, very important. Now, male and female. Now let's also begin to watch out for our children. Quickly, I will just say some of the signs. Now, some of these are the signs that your child might present if your child has been sexually abused. Well, one of the signs is, of course, the withdrawal syndrome. The child is likely to lose concentration. The child is likely to avoid activities that usually he finds or she finds interesting. You see that he just wants to be by himself. Sometimes they might have nightmares. Sometimes they may begin to show regressive behaviors. Regressive behaviors are, when you have a 10-year-old beginning to talk again, then that might be a sign that something had gone wrong. Or you have a 10-year-old that stopped bedwetting, starts to bedwet again. That might be a sign that something, something somewhere has gone wrong. Or your child just wants to hide, doesn't want to go. A child that is, you have an extrovert that begins to, just stay by himself or just, the withdrawal syndrome, or you begin to hear reports from the school that your child is not able to concentrate again in school. That might be your sign to actually probe further. Or your child begins to use sexual languages, or to begin to use adult words in conversing. You might also want to check. And then sometimes we just know, as mothers, you just know when there's something wrong. And when you have that gut feeling, please don't be disillusioned. Don't live in denial. Yes, abuse is terrible. It is traumatic. It is horrific for a child to go through it. But again, I've seen children that have been abused that have grown to be women of substance, even in Nigeria, even in Ibadan, where we are resident. So the fact that and I know that children are really very resilient, that's the truth about it, but they need the help that we can get to ensure that the effects of abuse on them are reduced to the barest minimum as best as we can. Whatever has happened to your child, whatever is happening to your child, please, the most important thing that will help your child is that you are there and that you are available for your child, to prevent the abuse from happening, to ensure that the abuse does not continue, and to make sure that your child recovers from the abuse. Whatever stage that you find yourself, or whatever stage that your child is, please ensure that you are available for your child. I always say it, and I will end it with this. One of the things that again I like to mention is that now, if your child has been abused, now the truth about it is, if you're going to help your child, you need to accept, if you can trace that abuse to any form of negligence on your part, you need to accept that. You need to apologize to your child. You need to have that conversation. Do not assume that, like I said earlier, do not assume that they cannot, your child will not be able to understand or articulate. Just, because how do you tell your child that I will protect you? Or you can tell me everything when your child has been abused, when you failed in the first leg of the protection in the first place. If you love me, if you are available to protect me in the first place, I would not have been abused. So you might want to have that conversation with your child that says, I'm sorry, I wasn't very observant, I'm sorry this has happened, but I promise that going forward, you are the center. You can always talk to me. But please let us not blame our children once abuse happens. There is no abuse that is the fault of any child. There is no abuse. There is no sexual abuse that is the fault of any child at any point. So please and it's natural for children to want to take the blame. So please let us make sure that we help reduce the guilt, the burden that our children feel. So, apologize to your child and make commitment to your child and do all that you can. The truth about it is sometimes as parents, we we ourselves expose our children. I'm sure you're saying no. Or but maybe I should say that sometimes we abuse our children. Yes, as parents, as mothers at this point, as mothers, a lot of times we abuse our children, sexually abuse our children. Now, before my head would actually go off my neck, now let me break this down. Yes, we assume a lot of times. I've been guilty of it, so I'm not saying what I've read, and I can tell you the effect that it had. And I had to work, I had to make conscious effort to actually undo my mistakes. Now, a lot of times we assume that because we're their mothers and we birthed them, and of course, when we birthed them, a lot of times to a large extent we're naked, and when they also came out, they were naked. So most of the times we tend to just assume that it's just okay, you know, for me to undress before my child. Now, remember that when we're talking about body safety education, we said no one is allowed to see or make you see someone else's private part. So when you undress before your child, male or female, now both parents, now although I was particular about mothers, but you know, both parents, now when you undress before your child, what are you doing? You are making your child see someone else's private part. So you're already putting images in the head of your child, and so it is not appropriate. I will say it again, it is not appropriate for us as mothers to undress before our sons, before our children. It is inappropriate, and we need to do something about it. Now again, I just remember this, and it's important that I put this. If we're going to save our children, we have to be less sentimental as mothers. You don't have a good cup that is a sentimental cup. No, one of the qualities of a good officer, you know, of the law is objectivity and level-headedness. Now, you cannot afford to be sentimental. Please let us disallow the use of endearing words on our children.